week 8 of the fantasy football season. His quarterback starts hit every matchup this week. First matchup Thursday night, Minnesota Vikings at the Chargers. Carson Wentz, he's going to get started once again. And Wentz, he's pretty much only had one good game since he's filled in for J.J. McCarthy after he went out with injury in week 2. So Carson Wentz, we know he's a gunslinger. We know he turns the football over. Is Wentz, obviously. And this week, even though this Charger defense has been struggling of late with guys like Justin Jefferson, Addison, T.J. Hockenson in this offense, he's a sit for me. Justin Herbert to start. This offense is loaded, especially at the receiving room. And then young tight end Andre Gadsden emerging over the last couple weeks. And this week, even in a matchup versus a good defense, I think Herbert could go out there. Thursday night, usually high scoring. And when you got guys like Glad McConkey, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, and like I said now, the youngster Andre Gadsden, the last couple weeks coming around, that's a lot of firepower in that offense, and he's an easy start. New York Jets at the Bengals. Tyrod Taylor, the starting out for the New York Jets. Justin Fields, besides week 1, he's looked like the worst quarterback in the league, pretty much, is Justin Fields. And now Tyrod Taylor, we'll see if he gets Garrett Wilson back 100% in this game. But obviously, even in a matchup versus a bad Bengal defense, he's a sit. Joe Flacco will start. When you got guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, it's a night and day difference from what Flacco worked with, obviously, in Cleveland early in the season. So Flacco, last week, he went out there. He put on a performance, 34 fantasy points. And this week versus Jet defense, I know they played better the last couple weeks, but still versus one of his former teams, I think Flacco goes out there and has a good ball game. Buffalo Bills at the Carolina Panthers. Josh Allen obviously locked in week and week out as a starter, coming off a bye and a bad loss at the Falcons in week 6. I think Josh Allen could be in for one of his best performances of the season. Andy Dalton is sit. Andy Dalton now the starting quarterback. Bryce Young got injured in week 7's game at the New York Jets, left in the third quarter. And Dalton, he's still a veteran. He's another guy that's a gunslinging mentality where he's going to try to stretch the field and make big plays. But this week versus Buffalo, coming off a bye, and Dalton at the latter part of his career. And this receiving room, still not great with weapons, in my opinion. Besides Hector McMillan, the only legit guy in that receiving room. Andy Dalton is a sit for me this week. San Francisco 49ers at the Houston Texans. Brock Purdy, if he plays, he's a fringe option. He's been banged up all season long with the toe and some shoulder issues, is Brock Purdy. But the San Francisco 49er team, they keep finding ways to win ball games, 5-2 on the season. And obviously Christian McCaffrey is the catalyst of that. So if Purdy's in the lineup, George Kittle came back last week. He didn't do much for this 49er team. Possibly Pierce returns, but this week he's a fringe option. And Mac Jones is a sit. Mac Jones, he had a couple good games in a row, but last week he didn't do much. Like I said, it was the McCaffrey show versus the Atlanta Falcons. And this Texan defense, they do create turnovers. We saw last week, even though they lost at the Seahawks, they created 4 turnovers in that game. So Jones is sit, CJ Stroud is sit. Looks like Nico Collins, he's going to be out in this game. He's in concussion protocol. And I don't know if by Sunday he could get out of the protocol, where they played on Monday, obviously. So it's a quick turnaround for Collins to come out of the protocol, and now pretty much a lot of no-name guys Stroud's going to be passing to win this one. Xavier Hutchinson, Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, a lot unproven, and we'll see if Christian Kirk comes back in this game. But Stroud, like I said, besides Dalton Schultz, if Collins is out, not much upside at all in this offense. New York Giants at the Eagles, a rematch from a couple weeks ago. Giants embarrassed them on Thursday Night Football, winning by 17. And Jackson Dart, every game he just goes out there and he puts up fantasy points. And so far he's shown he's matchup proof, especially obviously with his rushing ability. So this week at the Eagles, he's a start. And after coming off that horrific loss last week, blowing a monster lead in that ball game, you know, Dart, he's not happy, and he's going to go out there this week and try to put up a good game. Jalen Hurts, he's a must-start every week. A lot of criticism that Hurts don't stay in the pocket and make throws. But this Eagle team's 5-2, and Hurts has been playing this way his whole career. But last week, he quieted the critics, was Jalen Hurts. Threw over 300 yards. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith both had nice ball games. And this week versus a Giant team they want to get revenge on from a couple weeks ago, he's an easy start. Cleveland Browns at the Patriots, Dylan Gabriel sit. This offense still has problems moving the football. But last week, they did move the football well, but it wasn't Dylan Gabriel. It was Quinshon Judkins, 84 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. So this week in a matchup with the New England Patriots, one of the better defenses at home this season, he's a sit. Drake May is start. One of the best quarterbacks already in the league is Drake May. He could do it all. And the other thing now, which he's taking his game to the next level, spreading that football out and going through his second and third reads pretty quick. So this week in a matchup versus a good defense, Cleveland last week played great defense. You got Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, the catalyst on that defense for this Brown team. But still, Drake May, he's going out there and he's showing he could play no matter what the defense is. Chicago Bears at the Baltimore Ravens. Caleb Williams to start. Caleb Williams, I've said this in many videos, I don't think he's a great real-life quarterback, but a fantasy football quarterback, he's going to get numbers. Rome Odunze, the last couple of weeks, his numbers have been down. It's been the DeAndre Swift show over the last few weeks, but Baltimore, we know, is banged up, and they can't stop anyone this season, so Williams is start. Lamar Jackson, I'm assuming he's going to play in this ball game. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, but if you don't, it's going to be Cooper Rush or Tyler Huntley as a starting quarterback, and obviously those guys will be sit. But Lamar Jackson, first, second quarterback off the board, and this week, even if, let's say, he plays and he's 75-80%, you still easily start him. Miami Dolphins at the Falcons. Tua is going to start in this ball game. I know he got pulled last week for hours in that one where Miami's offense was horrible, couldn't do anything in Cleveland. And Tua, he's definitely taken a step back over the last season and change. And obviously it's tough with Tyreek Hill. He's been out since week 4 and obviously out for the season. Michael Penix Jr., a fringe option. The only reason I say he's a fringe option because this Miami defense is bad and they can't stop anyone. So Penix, we know he's got great playmakers. Obviously, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, a decent wide receiver. Kyle Pitts has come around a little bit this season. And obviously, Bijan Robinson, a great dual threat and best back, arguably, in football out of the backfield. So this week with a good matchup versus the Dolphins, Penix is a fringe option to me. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Saints, Baker Mayfield. It doesn't matter who's out there on the field. He's going to go out there and make plays and try to make things happen. I know last week the numbers weren't great, but Emeka Egbuka, he's back in the lineup last week. I know Mike Evans, he's out with a broken collarbone, but Cade Otton's been a big part of this offense. And Rachaad White, one of the better receiving backs out of the backfield. And this week, it's a great matchup with the Saints, a team he's put up a lot of yards and points against over the last few years is Mayfield. Spencer Rattler is hit. Rattler, I know he goes out there, he tries, but he just isn't that good of a quarterback. And we know this is a rebuilding mode type of year for this New Orleans Saints team, and they're going nowhere with only one win on the season. Easy sit. Tennessee Titans at the Indianapolis Colts. Cam Ward, it's been a very tough rookie season for him, and no one really has done anything in this offense, it seems like. But pretty much they're scoring with field goals from Joey Sly. Majority of these games is this Titan team. So this week in a matchup in Indianapolis where they're one of the better defenses at home than they are on the road, he's a sit. Daniel Jones to start. This team has turned it around. And Daniel Jones, obviously, the main reason is why Indianapolis is having a monster year, 6-1 on the year. They got a quarterback that stays in the pocket, makes his reads, definitely matured over the last couple seasons, and he's behind one of the best offensive lines, and you got one of the better running backs in the league. So with all that in sync and making big plays, he's an easy start versus a bad Titan defense. Dallas Cowboys at the Denver Broncos. This could be a potential high-scoring game. We saw the Broncos last week in Denver win that ball game 33-32 versus the New York Giants. And obviously this Dallas Cowboy offense, arguably the best offense in the league, and they're amongst the league leaders in a lot of statistics. And Dak Prescott, he's playing at a great level right now. CeeDee Lamb came back last week, he scored a touchdown. George Pickens having a big season as the number 2 receiver, and even versus a tough defense, I still think Dak could go out there, have a good ball game, but also I think he might turn it over a couple times as well. But still a start. Bo Nix a start. This week with his arm, you want him back in the game, and they came back and won. But the first half of that game, Bo Nix couldn't get anything going. A lot of throwing out of the pocket, a lot of bubble screens. And then once they opened up the playbook and they unleashed Bo Nix in the second half, where they had no choice with Sean Payton and this Bronco offense, he went out there and put up huge numbers. So you guys obviously Courtland Sutton, a great receiver. Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin. They're trying to see if one of these young guys break out. You got Evan Ingram at tight end, Dobbins and Harvey in the backfield. So they got good weapons. And we know this Dallas Cowboy DST can't stop anyone. So Bo Nix an easy start. And the final 2 games of the week, Green Bay Packers at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jordan Love is a start for me in this one. I think this game could be a potential high-scoring game in Pittsburgh. We saw last week Steelers and the Bengals back and forth battle between the 2 elder quarterbacks in the league, in Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco. And Jordan Love, they're winning games where he don't have to throw the football more than about 25-30 times per game because Josh Jacobs is having a big season. So this week at the Steelers on Sunday night, he's a start. Aaron Rodgers is a start. You know he's going to want to stick it to one of his former teams, and obviously a team he spent pretty much his whole career with in the Green Bay Packers, where he was with only the Jets 2 seasons and missed one of them with the Achilles. So Rodgers, he's locked in. Last week hit 3 different tight ends for touchdowns. DK Metcalf, his number one option. And this week, Green Bay, their defense the last couple of weeks hasn't been good. That game in Dallas, where it was a 40-40 tie going back weeks ago. Last week versus Arizona, their defense didn't play good. But this week, we'll see what happens in this game. But Aaron Rodgers, I still think he'll go out there and have a good game in the final game. Commanders at the Chiefs. Jaden Daniels will start if he plays. But once again, Jaden Daniels banged up. And that's what happens with some of these running quarterbacks. If you get hit in the legs, it's going to be an injury, either the hamstring or an ankle. And those are 2 injuries already we've seen from Daniels. So Daniels, he's looked good in the games he's played this season. But this week we'll see if he's out there Monday night. And if not, Marcus Mariota will be the quarterback. And this is a very tough matchup at one of the better defenses in the league, with obviously one of the best defensive coordinators in Steve Spagnuolo. So Mariota will be a sit. And Patrick Mahomes, he's back to an MVP level once again this season, and he's putting up numbers. And now to get Rashee Rice back last week to score 2 touchdowns in his first game back. This offense is going to be similar to what it was a few seasons ago, where they were putting up 30, 35 points per game. With Mahomes, he's locked in right now, and they're making big plays, and this Commander secondary really can't stop anyone. So that's quarterback start, sit every matchup for week 8 of the fantasy football season.